Well, now for more on one of our top stories this morning and the breakdown in negotiations between unions and Qantas.
We're joined now by Qantas CEO Alan Joyce. He's talking with Sky News chief political reporter Kieran Gilbert. Kieran.
Alan Joyce, thanks for your time. Can I start by asking you, do you give an absolute commitment to stand by the independent umpire's ruling on this dispute?
Absolutely, Kieran. We believe that nobody should be worried about the independent umpire making the decision on it. We're happy for this going to independent arbitration. We would have preferred that we would have had a negotiated settlement with the unions. We couldn't get there. There were items with every union that couldn't be resolved in negotiations. Now is the right time to go to the independent arbitrator, and everybody should be honouring the decision of the independent arbitrator.
So under no circumstances would the airline appeal the Fair Work Australia ruling on this arbitration?
No, I believe, that the process we're going through is a fair and legitimate process. The government has referred to the Fair Work Australia under the Fair Work Australia Act. That is a completely legitimate process. We're happy with going through that process. We're going to be happy with whatever the independent arbitrator decides on. We think that the union should declare the exact same thing. Nobody should dispute the independent ruling of the independent umpire. Now, for us, the most important thing now is that this is brought to a conclusion. We want certainty for our customers, certainty for our employees, and certainty for our shareholders. There can be no more industrial action through this binding arbitration. At the end of the binding arbitration, we'll have a deal of up to 4 years with each of the individual unions. That now allows customers to book with Qantas with certainty, allows our employees to have certainty that this issue is now out of the way, and takes the stress levels that have been on our employees off the table. And we think this is great for everybody concerned, that finally these disputes are at an end.
Mr. Joyce, the airline has said it's been negotiating in good faith. If it has been entirely in good faith, why did you not agree to the Transport Workers Union request for a further 21 days of negotiation?
Well, Kieran, the fact is that we've been negotiating now with the unions for up to 15 months, with the Transport Workers Union for 6 months, and the same issues at the end of the 21 days have been there all the way through. We're not going to get conclusion on them. Going for another 21 days is just going to reach the same conclusion at the very end of it. So having realised that, and having realised there's some items that we're never going to get agreement on, I think it's fair to say let's hand it over to the independent arbitrator. Nobody should be concerned about that. Nobody should be worried about what an independent umpire says. We're happy to go through that process, and go for another 21 days wasn't going to get us there, and we believe that was going to go to independent arbitration anyway, because the same issues are still outstanding.
You're talking up the certainty out of this, that the arbitration gives certainty that there will be a 4-year deal done. But there is still a fair bit of uncertainty over this, is there not? With the pilots launching a legal appeal, the Transport Workers Union also considering at their federal executive this Thursday a legal challenge as well. Doesn't that, the legal course of action, create and sustain uncertainty around this dispute?
No, Kieran, I think you look at what the government is saying, and they're very clearly saying that there is no, they believe that there's no legal case for these unions to challenge it in the courts, and they will vigorously defend any cases in the courts, and that their view is the case is extremely strong, and we in Qantas will completely support the government on this. We believe the government is right. There isn't a legal case for this to be challenged. The government's case is extremely strong, and we'll help the government to defend it along with where the government is. And I think at this stage it really should be up to the unions to say, let's bring this to a close. Let the independent arbitrator decide. Why are they so worried about what the independent arbitrator is going to come out with? They shouldn't be. If they're fair and reasonable, and the demands are fair and reasonable, they shouldn't be worried about this going to arbitration. And we call on them to pull back on all legal action, allow this to go to the arbitrator, and recognise the final decision of the umpire and say it's all over. That's what Qantas is doing. That's what the union should do.
On the impact to the airline's bottom line, are the forward bookings now back to their normal trajectory? And if so, and the arbitration does provide the certainty that you're talking about and hope for, what will have been the impact in terms of, in dollar terms, of this messy dispute?
Well, first of all, in dollar terms, we are doing the assessment as we speak. Once we have a final number, or once we know what the final impact is, we'll be coming back to the market and making the market aware of those numbers. I have to say, we are getting immense support from the business community and our core business travellers, and we're seeing the business market massively support Qantas and its actions and coming back to Qantas in droves. So we're very happy with the performance that we're seeing and that support from the business community. I've been overwhelmed by our leading customers showing their support for Qantas and saying now that certainty is back, that they're travelling in Qantas even more so than ever. So we're seeing that bringing certainty to this issue is the most important thing we can do. And for customers out there, now is the time to book on Qantas. There's very cheap airfares encouraging people to travel internationally and domestically. We also have frequent flyers that can earn multiple points. If you're a platinum member, double points. If you're a gold member, 50% extra points if you travel between now and Christmas, to encourage those customers to come back to Qantas.
Mr. Joyce, you've been the subject of scathing criticism for the grounding the fleet by many, including government ministers. Do you have any regrets about the impact on people's lives, on people that missed important events and commitments because of the decision that you took?
Yes, Kieran, I do. I mean, I've said on multiple occasions, I'm really sorry for the disruption that we caused when we grounded the airline. But at the end of the day, there were 70,000 people before we grounded the airline that were disrupted. And the unions were saying that they were going to continue this on for a year. And I had a tough decision to bring this to an end, to bring it to a conclusion, or to last another year with passengers not travelling on Qantas, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of passengers having further disruptions. At the end of the day, we brought it to an end. At the end of the day, we brought certainty for our customers and our employees, and we stopped hundreds of thousands of people being disrupted with this slow bake over the next year. And it was unfortunately the least of two evils that we had to do in order to get us to this situation. And we are now at the end of it. No more industrial action can take place. And at the end of the day, it was the only call I could make.
Alan Joyce, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks.
Thanks, Kieran.